the business is a living entity that can exist without you, and that you actually care that your living entity and your business continues when you're leaving, either unexpectedly or when it's a planned exit. So this webinar is all about that, this legacy planning. We want to ensure, we're going to learn about how to ensure your business continues in the event of death or incapacity of the primary owner. We're going to learn how to properly transition your business to your children, your family, or employees. I know a lot of business owners, when you ask them, what do you plan on doing with your business after you retire? A lot of them do talk about wanting to transition their business to their children or their family, but they don't understand or they don't know how to do it. So we're going to learn about how to do that properly. We're going to also learn about how to avoid common mistakes when making your estate plan. Estate planning itself is very important for anybody, but for business owners in particular, an estate plan is going to be a very unique a thing for you, because you have to actually accommodate for your business, which is an actual asset. So there's a lot of mistakes and a lot of misconceptions that are made when making your estate plan. So we're going to discuss that. We're also going to discuss what can you do today to protect the legacy of your business. So this webinar is meant to be a practical exercise for you all too, to really think about certain things that you can start putting into place today that will help ensure that you continue and secure the legacy that you built for your business. So I hope this is the most boring part of the presentation. I am a business lawyer, so I do have to put a disclaimer out there and I have to go through this. This workshop is being provided solely for informational purposes and does not create an attorney-client privilege or provide specific legal advice for any individual situation. This workshop should be used in conjunction with and not as a substitute for qualified legal counsel. Only an attorney with knowledge of your situation can provide the assistance you need. You're urged to consult an attorney about your matter. You still feel free to ask any questions that you may have that go out that may come up throughout the presentation. I just have to put it out there that, if it's a question that's specific to your situation, I may have to advise you that it may be best to take it off screen or to have a consultation with an attorney. So let's just start this webinar with a little bit of an open discussion, because I am curious to really get your opinion or what your thoughts are as a group. What does legacy mean to you? The title of this webinar is Legacy Planning for Business Owners. So I honestly think that legacy is a very broad term. So put it in the chat. What does legacy mean to you? And I kind of want to dive into that. Tim, do we have any question or any answers? I can't see the chat.
Not yet. We're waiting for the thoughts to percolate.
I see. Actually, I do see some. Okay.
Okay, I see now.
What will survive after your departure? Yeah, that's good, Memo. Tabitha, leaving behind something after I die. That's what I think of as well. To carry on, to continue. Joy, that's great. Pauline, organize continuity. We're actually going to be discussing continuity near the end of the presentation, so I'm glad you brought that up. It has survived. Sean, it's good. Yeah, I think that it looks like that there is this theme here about moving past you, surviving, right? Surviving what? And the way I see it is, I think like a lot of you is surviving me. If I have a business and I don't care if the thing dies once I'm out of it, then is that really a business? To me, it means that you're just self-employed. It means you have a job. To have a business means you actually created something that's going to last past you. And so this legacy is this continuity of almost, you can think of it as like a living organism that can get bigger and bigger, have more of a presence that you started and that will continue long after you. And I think for a lot of people, it's why you get into it. There's an immediate need to feed your needs as a business owner, but you get to a certain point where your business starts growing and you actually start serving others. And so when that business starts to serve others, whether it's society, whether it's employees, that's what you're really doing. You're really establishing that legacy, because once we all see this whole living organism, we look back and we can attribute that to you as the original business owner. I think we have another. Yeah, leaving something of value to designated entities. Yeah, I think it's that idea of you're leaving something behind, whether it's to another organization, whether it's to people, your family. It's that concept. So I want to talk about two entrepreneurs, because we're talking about a legacy here. And these two entrepreneurs, I'm not going to tell you their name. I'm going to just tell you their story. And I do want you to see if you can guess who they are before I reveal their names, because these are two people, these are two business owners who had a similar idea of a motivation of leaving a legacy, but the results and where they are today are very, very different. So let's see who these people are. So let's go to entrepreneur number one. Entrepreneur number one, and again, I'm going to read out these clues. If you have a guess, feel free to put it in the chat and see if you're correct. So entrepreneur number one built a railroad company back in the 1800s. He just started with $100, which could have been substantial in the 1800s, but nothing too crazy. But was able to exponentially grow his net worth into the hundreds of millions of dollars back in this 1800s. And as I see here, it's almost $200 billion adjusted in today. So you would say that if this entrepreneur made that much money in today's dollars, he would probably be the richest person in the world today. He left his business to his heirs. So he left shares of the company to his heirs because he wanted to make sure that he established a legacy that his family could continue for generations. However, these heirs had their own ideas. They weren't really privy to the business. They were very interested in spending and enjoying the money rather than continuing the legacy. They bought a lot of property, expensive property in New York. They hosted lavish parties, and they really didn't put an emphasis on growing the business. It really wasn't a value to them. So over time, there was so much money that was left to them that the first generation that inherited the business still very rich. But as the generations progressed, they got the net worth decreased, they got poorer and poorer. And eventually, 100 years later, there was a survey done at a family reunion of this family, and there wasn't a single millionaire. So just think about that. This entrepreneur tried to grow a business, and he did. It was very successful. And within 2 generations, the fortune was pretty much gone. Entrepreneur number 2. This guy started a retail store in 1945. He had the idea of, if I could sell a variety of items in one place and price it lower than specialty stores, I may be able to grow a business. And he was very successful. He grew one store into almost 2,000 in less than 50 years. He had the same idea as entrepreneur number 1. He wanted to leave his business to his family, and he wanted his family to grow the empire And he wanted to leave a legacy of not only just leaving a footprint in society with how he sells these items, but ensure that his family had a continuing source of jobs, a source of revenue, and a source of money forever. And they instituted a lot of mechanisms over the years to ensure that their business is always going to be in control of the family. And his company to this day is actually a public company. And despite the fact that their shares get traded on a daily basis in the market, his family still controls the business. So 30 years after he's dead, there are 7 billionaires in this family, 7 different billionaires. And this is not including the entrepreneur number 2. And collectively, the net worth of this family is the richest in the United States. So if you look at what he accomplished, I would think that entrepreneur 2, if he were alive today, would be very proud of what he saw, of what he sees, and I think the company today would be very much in line, or maybe it would even exceed his own expectations. So do we have any guesses as to who entrepreneur number 1 is? Maybe this may help. Probably not, but it could help for some history buffs. Tim, do we have any guesses in the chat?
Yes, we do. I don't think they're all serious. Somebody said Donald Trump.
Yeah, I don't think Donald Trump was alive in the 1800s.
It didn't look like that. Vanderbilt. A lot of people recognize Vanderbilt. So those are basically, other than the jokes, Vanderbilt.
Wow, you guys are smart. All right, I mean, of course you're smart, but I wouldn't have known that unless I researched it. So let me see. That is correct. Entrepreneur number 1 is Cornelius Vanderbilt. When he had his fortune at that time, he was the richest man in the US. And I think a lot of people, maybe you're surprised to think that his family doesn't have the wealth or weren't able to preserve the wealth that he had, but you see their names everywhere. So they have a whole university named after them. I believe the Vanderbilt Mansion is the largest private residence in the United States. I think there might be a hospital named after them. There's a lot of things that are named after the Vanderbilts. They were accomplished through donations through to various organizations. But when it comes to the actual wealth of the family, they're not nearly as wealthy as Cornelius was back in his day. So it kind of begs the question of, as an entrepreneur, would he be happy that at the very least we all know his name? So a lot of people were able to guess who he was, even though he died more than 150 years ago. But the money that he had got squandered in 2 generations. So what legacy means to you could be different from what it means to somebody else. So maybe he's happy about the idea that maybe my name is everywhere and I don't care about the money, or maybe he thinks it's a shame that his family squandered that wealth. So what about entrepreneur number 2? Do you have any guesses for entrepreneur number 2?
Sam Walton Walmart.
Man, all right, you guys are good. I thought this would be a lot harder. I guess maybe the clues were too specific. You guys are really good. That is the Sam Walton. Sam Walton is the founder of Walmart. I believe that if he were walking down the street, he's dead now, but I believe even when he was alive, if he was walking down the street, a lot of people wouldn't recognize him. But you mentioned his company, and everyone recognizes him throughout the United States. He's been able to build an empire that's so widely recognized so fast, but also has provided for his family through one generation. And he's a lot more young. He was a lot younger than Vanderbilt. So it still remains to be seen what will happen to his family in the next 100 years or so. But as of today, they're set up really well. There's no reason to believe that his fortune won't not only sustain itself, but continue and expand. He's got a very intricate way of really establishing his ability to control Walmart and keep it within the family. And as the Walton family grows, their control over Walmart remains stable even as the company gets bigger and bigger over time. So when we talk about a legacy planning and how Sam Walton was able to achieve his legacy and his succession planning, is we're really talking about business succession. And in essence, Sam Walton and Walmart has created a business succession plan. And the idea of this is that a succession plan is a concerted effort of preserving the value of a business when the owner has a planned exit or an unplanned exit, meaning disability or death. So the idea here is that there's an actual way of, you can, as a business owner, of planning your exit so that your business continues and your legacy continues way after you leave your business. Now, there's some business owners that may see this and think, well, I'm just started my business. That's something I'll worry about that down the road. That's something that a major corporation has to worry about. I've got more pressing things to talk about or to be concerned about. But that's not necessarily true. A business succession plan can be useful for any business at any stage because there's practical benefits of it. Once you have, it instills confidence in key employees and lenders. So even if you don't have employees, lenders take a lot into consideration if they're going to give you a business loan. And having a business succession plan in place, having something in writing and giving that to a lender in addition to your application puts you ahead of a lot of other applicants, because you're showing the lender that not only do I have a business plan, but I have a plan of making sure that this plan continues, even if I were to leave the business or something unforeseen happens to me. As employees, you have a business succession plan. You are giving confidence to your employees that I have a job and that if I love working for this company, this job is going to remain and continue even if the business owner leaves. I think there's a statistic from the SBA that says the vast majority of jobs in the United States are from small businesses. So as a small business owner, even if you have a couple of employees, your employees value their jobs and they count on that going forward. So this business succession plan gives them the confidence to stay in your business and not worry about what happens if something unforeseen happened. It increases the value of your company. One thing that a lot of business owners don't plan for is, what if things go really right for your business and you have an opportunity to sell your business? And in doing so, creating a lot of wealth for yourself. Having a business succession plan increases the value of the company because you are communicating to the buyer of the company that the business is not 100% totally reliant on you being there. And that's what makes a company valuable. If you have any desire to one day sell your business, this is something that is a very crucial part of that. As an attorney, I've been a part of deals that have fell apart because investors have looked at a business that they've been interested in buying, but didn't see a way of continuing the business without the owner because of what the owner shared with them. And these owners don't have a succession plan of proving to these investors that this business can last without me. And that has resulted in lower valuations, which has actually tanked deals. But this third benefit, which I think is the most important, is peace of mind. A lot of you business owners may have family that are either employed by the business or have family that benefit from the business. And if you have a business succession plan, you at least have the peace of mind of knowing what's going to happen if the unforeseen happened. You also are giving your family that peace of mind because they are able to rely on this plan if it has to be executed for an unforeseen circumstance, or if it's something that is planned, you have a very high chance of making sure that it's actually successful. So what happens to your business if it does not have a succession plan? So essentially, if you don't have a business succession plan, your business, you lose control of the business if you become, let's just say, if you become disabled, or if you were to unfortunately pass away and you have no estate plan, your business has to go through probate. And probate is a very complicated process that involves going to court. But what it means for you, for our purposes today, what it means is if you don't have a succession plan and you don't have an estate plan and you were to pass away, it wouldn't matter what you want as a business owner. So if I say, I want my business to be left to my daughter if I pass away, and I don't have a plan for that, and I pass away, there's no guarantee that the business would actually be left to my daughter. So as business owners, we love the idea of having control of our destinies, but you lose that control if you don't have a plan. And this legacy that we're all talking about, that we all want, that we all define, is that idea of being able to leave something behind. It actually becomes in jeopardy, because a delay in ownership transition can really harm your business. It's probably one of the top 3 things that can tank a business if it's not planned for. And what really happens is that depending on how big your business is, or depending on how the business operates, without that primary owner, the business is in limbo. Somebody has to pay the checks. Somebody has to have the authority to open up the bank account or to have access to those funds. And if you don't have a plan for that, and the business over relies on your presence there, then this legacy is in jeopardy, and the business itself is in jeopardy, regardless of how successful it was while you're operating it, or how good your business idea is. But also, if you have business partners, if you have an unexpected exit and you don't have a plan for that, you could be leaving business partners behind who are going to have to deal with the aftermath. Because as a business owner, your ownership interest by law is personal property. So it's almost as if I own my computer, right? If I were to pass away or become disabled and can't use it, that ownership interest can pass to someone else. If you have a business and you have partners and you leave unexpectedly and there's no plan for it, your business partners are now dealing with a new owner that they might not anticipate. And this new owner can cause conflicts between the people who are in the business, who knows how to operate it, and now a new person who may or may not either have the experience or have the business's best interest at heart. So I kind of want to give you an example of this. I had a client that came to me. His father owned 2 companies. One company had no employees. It just received royalties from an invention. He also had another company that had a few employees, and he unexpectedly passed away. The client that came to me, the son, so the son was our client, the dad was the only owner in the business. So he comes to me and says the dad has no estate plan, and he's freaking out because he doesn't know what to do, because they have a bank account that has now not no primary owner, and they have employees that find out about the death that have no idea what's going to happen next. The son that came to me was also very frustrated because he himself owned a startup, and he felt that he now had to figure this all out and was not in the best position to both run his own company and had to figure out how to run his dad's company. And on top of all of that, his mom depended on the income of the business. So because of all of this, they had unhappy employees, a very anxious mother, and a son who's angry, frustrated, and scared about what's going to happen next. We were able to resolve a lot of the issues that came up with this client, but it was extremely expensive. We had to refer him to an estate planning attorney, and I think this case came to us about 2 years ago, and as of about 3 months ago, they're still going through the process of figuring this all out. So as you can see, as it stands right now, it's easy to think that this is something that I really don't have to worry about. But given COVID, given all this uncertainty that we're all facing as a society, things happen very fast. And the decision to not have a plan can have consequences that extend way beyond just you. This affects a lot of people that you may love and a lot of people that may depend on you as a business owner. So if you're at the point now where you're thinking, okay, I get it, I should have a business succession plan, but I really don't know exactly how to start or what to do. There are obstacles that I think that prevent us from actually taking that first step to making a plan. The first one is the motivation of the successors. We talk a lot about, when we talk about business succession planning, I don't think enough is discussed about having conversations with the people who are actually going to inherit the business. So if you're a person that wants to one day leave your business to a child of yours, and especially if that child is an adult, when you don't have conversations and you don't anticipate what their needs are or how they're going to be succeeding or even operating within the business when they own it, you can cause a lot of conflicts, because the new owners themselves can sink a business because they have a lot of different interests that may not be aligned with yours, that makes your business successful today, or that will make the business successful later on. So what I like to do is I like to tell people, if you are serious about establishing a plan, you really need to rank the motivations of someone taking over the business. When somebody owns a business, there's 4 really real motivations and these 4 things really drive your desire to even own your business. It's cash flow, it's wealth accumulation, occupation, and legacy. These ideas really mean that you can have all 4, but one is the most important. And what I want you to take away from here is that if you can have this conversation with people you want to leave your business to, you can tailor your succession plan around the primary motivation. So if I have a child that is, let's just say 25 years old, and I tell them, I want you to one day own this business, but what would you be interested in if you were to own the business? And they say, well, I just want to make sure that I have a stable, the money is coming in every month because I may have other interests. So in that sense, their primary motivation is cash flow. You can set up your business so that you can leave your business to that child to where they get that monthly cash flow, but you can structure the business in a way that somebody else makes some major decisions or makes at least some decisions so that the person that is taking over the business has an interest in keeping it going, and that what you plan on doing matches what they want to do when they eventually take over. The second obstacle is assembling a team of professionals. A succession plan is a process. It's not something that's done overnight, and it involves multiple professionals. I think this is something that is not discussed enough as well. As an attorney, I have a role in forming a business succession plan for my clients, but if my clients aren't seeing these other professionals, the financial advisors, the insurance agents, accountants, they're being underserved. So I take the approach of informing the clients that this is a team effort. And so it could be a very hard thing to do, to really talk to a bunch of different professionals who have a different expertise about this one plan. But until you do that, whatever plan that you come up with is going to have some holes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what each role these professionals have in your succession plan. An attorney will ensure that the plan is actually structured correctly, and they can draft, review, and negotiate necessary contracts. When every business is entering into contracts, and regardless of when you leave, the business is going to be in those contracts afterwards. So an attorney can help you renegotiate or understand how your exit can affect these contracts with the business. A planning attorney can modify your estate plan or establish your estate plan that matches and accommodates your succession plan, so that you're making sure that if you want to leave your business to your children, that you actually have the proper estate plan in place for that. And an attorney also ensures that your corporate documents are not only just in place to establish your foundation as a legal business entity, but it also ensures that the corporate documents are going to be in place so that your plan is actually executed. The takeaway here is that you can have an actual succession plan in place, but it's those corporate documents that are actually going to execute the plan. Accountants are making sure that you understand the tax implications of whatever the lawyer tells you about your business corporate structure, because a part of the plan may involve you actually changing your business structure so that you're able to really move around that equity, so that the controlling interest is how you want it to be. And this is something that Walmart did in the early stages of Sam Walton's career, to make sure that his plan was executed correctly. Now, the accountant is the one that tells them and tells the owner, if you do X, it's going to cost you Y in taxes, or try to work with the attorney to figure out a way of making sure that whatever happens isn't going to cause any adverse tax complications for you. And it's also going to develop strategies to decrease taxes when this equity is actually transferred. If you actually grow your business, and hopefully you all will have the problem of trying to lower your estate taxes, because it means that you've amassed an estate that's worth a couple $1 million. Your accountant will plan for that, and plan for an effective way of making sure that those taxes don't chip away at the net worth of what you're literally passing down to next generation. And accountants also have contacts that can establish a business valuation for exit planning purposes. So for those of you who may think I want to actually sell my business one day, your accountant can make introductions to business brokers or even do a valuation of your business yourself so that you understand what you're working with here as in terms of how, when I talk about passing on my business to someone else, what does that actually, what could that possibly mean in a dollars and cents idea. Financial advisors and insurance agents assist with retirement planning for those business owners who may be in a position of thinking of, I want to retire from my business, but I would like my business to actually help sustain my retirement. And this happens a lot. And these financial advisors help bridge that gap of making sure that happens. They also can find insurance policies that provide cash to the business in case there is an unexpected death or incapacity of the owner. And this becomes extremely critical when you have a business partner, or for those of you that have family members that really rely on the income for the business. These insurance policies are, the way they usually work is that the business will take out a policy in the business's name. So the business is the beneficiary. So that if something were to happen to you as the owner, it could be the business partners or the business itself receives the cash. And that cash can be paid out to the beneficiaries of your estate plan, or for those of you with business partners, it can be paid out to the business partners who can then buy out any new owners that are coming into the business. And they also help fund buy-sell agreements. For those of you who may not be familiar with these, a buy-sell agreement is usually an agreement between business partners that anticipate one of the partners or some of the partners staying and some of the partners leaving the business. It gives the business the money for business partners to buy each other out. And these advisors can help you do that. So the third obstacle that usually business owners find with really instituting these plans is not having a business continuation plan. So there's a difference between the business succession plan and the business continuation plan. The business succession plan answers the question of what happens to the business when I plan to exit. The business continuation plan answers the question of what happens to the business if I exit unexpectedly, which would usually be because of some sort of incapacity or disability, or if you pass away. So the continuation plan is a mini plan that's used as a measure to protect the business if you were to leave tomorrow, whether you, it could even mean if you retire, but mainly for if you were to pass away tomorrow or become disabled. And it really is the first step in creating a successful business plan. And it has to be updated periodically, just like the succession